Joe, let's talk a little bit about the winning. So Trump shuttered the DEI offices across the government yesterday. I guess they're on leave without pay, but how magnificent is that? And he overturned, I don't know if you saw this, he overturned Harry Truman's initial executive order that established affirmative action as the way forward for the country. So he is peeling back. We're talking about decades and decades of this race-baiting shift from meritocracy and moving it back to that, and I couldn't be happier about that.
Yeah, I saw a poll today, I was reading the poll. Blacks, Hispanics, they're all on board. They don't like it either. And this guy pointed out that in the blue-collar jobs that have been created, not many, but it's like 5% have gone to whites. Well, that's not affirmative action. That's racism. Absolutely. And that's what they created here. And we all pretended like, oh, it's needed. We should be punished. We should feel bad because our skin is white. You know, they can go to hell. These people they are satanic. They are gross.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on The State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of The State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Good morning from the frozen tundra on the bayou. I hope you all are staying warm and being safe if you venture out. We have a jam-packed show today. It's going to be so fun because we have our friend Joe Hoft back with us, and there's so much going on. I told a friend yesterday that watching Trump in the news right now is like drinking from Niagara Falls. Like it's not a fire hydrant. This is way, way bigger than a fire hydrant. But before we get into the latest happenings, let me read the scripture of the day. It's Psalm chapter 126, verses 1, 2, 3. And it says, "It was like a dream come true when you freed us from our bondage and brought us back to Zion. We laughed and overflowed with gladness. We were left shouting for joy and singing your praise. All the nations saw it and joined in, saying, 'The Lord has done great miracles for them.' Yes, he did mighty miracles, and we are so overjoyed." And I feel like this scripture just perfectly captures the moment we're in. It describes the way I have felt all week, starting Sunday. I mean, on the 19th, I have to say, I really felt some spiritual breakthrough, some turning of the battle tide. And I'm still overwhelmed by the reality that the Lord has heard our prayers and delivered us from the nightmare that we were living in under wicked and absent leadership. And now we're in a moment of complete and total change, and the whole world sees it, and they're rejoicing too. Not all of their leaders, but the people of the world are overjoyed to see America retake a place of strength and common sense again. So let's not take this moment or the miracles for granted. I don't think any of us are, because God deserves all of the glory and the praise, and we know that we would not be here without his grace, and that is just a fact.
That is a 100% fact. Danielle, you mentioned bondage. You talk about people living in bondage during the entire Biden administration. I mean, people really felt voiceless and powerless during that administration because we were dealing with people who simply have no regard for the basic foundations of this republic, that we are a constitutional republic, and that the people's voice does matter. And now I think that we are on the verge of reestablishing and reclaiming that legacy for our country. Thank God.
Thank God.
And someone who's been very instrumental in helping us get to this point with this indefatigable enthusiasm and courage is Joe Hoft. Joe, what a pleasure to have you with us today, sir.
Hey guys, it is so wonderful to be with you. And that I really, as you were reading that passage, I'm like, no, come on, she grabbed that. That thing was so perfect. Yeah, my God, that was so perfect. We've been, we are rejoicing right now, but it's been dark. It's been dark times.
So dark.
And the dark wants to continue, and we're fighting against it. And the rest of the world's seeing, and we're seeing all these, European countries now just, waking up, and we're tired of this. And so much, like you said, the fire hose coming at us of Trump, which is just overwhelming. Like Trump got us out of the WHO. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean,
Yeah.
things like that, big things have already taken place. I haven't even caught up on them all. Yeah. And that guy stayed up till like what, 2 a.m. signing executive orders that
Had to be the longest
Monday
day
night.
in history. I bet he didn't sleep at all.
He is something else.
And doing essentially a press conference while he's doing the executive orders. He's sitting there talking to the press while he's doing them, and he seemed very calm, very relaxed, and very decisive for sure.
That's
Joe,
it.
You were at the inauguration. Tell us your takeaways from the inauguration. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I'll tell you it's about a 4 or 5 day period, so I'll just kind of give you the spiel as quickly as I can here. We went there early. My wife's Chinese, and we have a little guy who was born in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was a free country, as you know, 10 years ago. So he has a passport, so we want to keep that. And it gets him in and out of China. It gets him, around the world with basically the Hong Kong passport used to be the most coveted passport out there. Anyways, we had to go to the Chinese consulate to pick it up now. So China has taken over Hong Kong over this last period of years.
Yeah.
So we were able to get it. She was able to get it on Friday. So that's why we went early. And then we walked around the whole DC and went and saw the National Archives, saw the Declaration of Independence, the actual one, a copy, one of the original drafts, and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Never seen that before. We walked across the street to the United States. I think it's the Gallery of Art. It just has incredible pieces of work there. Saw Da Vinci, 500-year-old painting, just beautiful still. And so that was fantastic. Friday, we walked about 5 miles in that cold air down there. It was so cold for me coming from Florida. Used to live in Iowa. Used to go swimming in this weather. And now it's like, no, it's
not now.
Your skin got thin, huh?
I'm telling you, it sure did. Hong Kong was real hot and muggy. And then I moved here to Florida. Pretty similar weather. And man, that was brutal. I'm not used to it. And so that was Friday. Saturday, spent some time with my brother, Tom Renz, and General Flynn talking, which was a really great opportunity.
What a great guy. I gotta do a little plug here for Tom Renz, Joe.
Yeah.
You talk about a warrior.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy there who also is a friend of Tom's, a former, one of the first leakers of what's going on with COVID, was sitting with us as well. It was an incredible discussion. Flynn is talking about, really kind of warning us about, here's the deal. There are so many communists in our government right now.
Yeah.
We have got to get rid of them. He said this, I think it's okay for me to share this. He said, John Brennan is a really, really dark guy. We've got to get him in prison quickly, or this thing's, thing's going to get out of hand. And I just noticed this morning on Twitter, John Brennan, barking about how terrible it was for Trump to take away his clearance and his ability to get, classified information. So that's
Cry
a great
harder,
thing.
John. Cry harder.
Yeah, isn't it? That's a great thing that Trump did.
Yeah.
And that'll, and he would say, well, we needed this because when we would go in and be brought in for, discussion on various points, we needed access to know what they were talking about. Now we don't have it. Good, John.
Yeah,
we don't want you talking about anything, right?
Absolutely.
Russian collusion.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
before you go on, I've got to ask you about this. I was going to ask you this farther down the line, but with Danielle's indulgence, I'm going to ask you about it now. You just said that there are so many communists in our government. I saw a Rasmussen poll recently, and I couldn't believe it. 42% of top-level federal bureaucrats and officials apparently oppose Trump's agenda and are going to try to undermine his agenda. The communists that you're talking about, what do we need to do to identify and root these people out of our government?
I think they have to be fired right away and then prosecuted if they committed crimes. I mean, Merrick Garland needs to go to prison. Yeah, it's the guy on Alex Jones the other night. What's his name? The Proud Boy.
Enrique Tarrio.
Yeah, Tarrio. He said that. He said this guy needs to be thrown in prison. And he does. He does. We believe that the DOJ and the Biden White House, same thing, was running all these cases, not just January 6th cases, not just the Trump cases like Merchan's bogus case, all these terrible, filthy, disgusting cases against President Trump that had no merit at all. Any legitimate judge would never allow it in their courtroom. They had to find these nasty, corrupt, disgusting, maybe satanic judges to even let this thing move forward. It was so gross to me. But we believe the civil cases as well were being run out of that same group. And Tina Peters' case, for example, I think that also was ran. Anything related to the election was going to be ran out of D.C. And we knew that,
Joe, even the state cases, even the cases where the federal government really has no jurisdiction, they were orchestrating even the state prosecutions, which is even more obnoxious.
Well, we found evidence that Merrick Garland was in on one of the first discussions on the Tina Peters case in Colorado. So, and we found this in our case, a civil case against some individuals from Georgia that I, said, okay, I won't mention their names anymore. Yeah. The same groups that's going after Rudy Giuliani. It's not them. They all are. But I've given too much slack to the individuals whose names are on the case against us. But it's really tech democracy, this nasty group of Obama attorneys. It's just filthy. They're just filthy, disgusting. Everything they do is against America. They're total communists is what they are. Jim filed for bankruptcy per terrible initiatives from our attorneys. They said, well, why don't we do this? We'll move the case out of St. Louis by filing for bankruptcy. So Jim files in Florida. And what happens is the DOJ guy shows up. And he's the biggest complainer about this bankruptcy filing. And quite frankly, Jim wasn't bankrupt, but there was a reason for trying to do it. And it was crazy, but the DOJ was fighting it the most. It wasn't, it wasn't Ruby and Shay's team or anything. It was, I'm sorry, I mentioned their names there, but the
DOJ has been so merciless, Joe. We have seen grandmas who are pro-life put in prison. We have seen, we had a guest on last week. His name's Jeremy Harrell. In fact, if you and Jim would help us get his story out, that would be amazing. He's a veteran who's disabled. The VA is the one who has to classify him as disabled, and they sued him, and the DOJ prosecuted him. He's going to jail for 6 months for volunteering and helping veterans. Yeah.
And the bottom line on that, Joe, you're right, Daniel. And the bottom line, Joe, is Jeremy started a very successful nonprofit that treats and counsels and attempts to heal war veterans who have been deeply scarred by war, and service members who, in many times, are very hopeless because of the trauma inflicted on them by war. And his organization has done so much good for those people. He was originally working with the VA, but he began to do a much better job than the incompetent VA. And so they ended up taking out a vendetta on him out of envy and malice, ended up concocting charges against him, prosecuting him. And now he's going to be going to jail for 6 months for doing nothing but volunteering his time and doing a better job than they were doing. That's the kind of DOJ we're talking about.
Well, that's the kind of country we had under Biden. We had Dr. Molly James went to North Carolina, started her own clinic there, trying to help these people. And they ended up shutting down her clinic. They said, you can't do that. But FEMA's there doing nothing. And
perfect example.
There we go again. Same in the Justice Department. Who's getting sued? Who's getting, Hunter Biden's getting off. We've got pardoned then. The whole thing's a sham. Everything's a sham under this past government. This was tyranny at its worst, and we survived somehow. So quite frankly, as we talk about the inauguration, I said this to somebody the other night. We had a party Monday night, which was neat in D.C., and I ended up, talking about how I'm more pissed, quite frankly, than I am really excited.
I'm excited to share a fantastic opportunity for State of Freedom listeners who are interested in investing in precious metals or even starting a home-based business in the precious metals industry. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the big sites. They have no credit card fees and no minimums. If you're just interested in purchasing metals at a great price, visit metalstacks.com/DWalker. Get to shopping. That helps me out. I get the commission. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you're interested in learning about the referral business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us for more information.
I can't believe the hell we've been through, and I want these people, I want them, severely punished. If you're in a position like as an attorney, the DOJ, whoever, FBI, you have a duty to uphold the law. And if you're breaking that law and using your position to harm others, which they did across the board, any conservatives getting attacked, I think you should be held to the incredible levels because we trusted you with those positions, and you should be punished severely for those actions. And especially, I don't think that, you're the lawyer here, Chris, but I don't think it's out of text to start looking at some of these as a RICO case, as well as not just tyranny, but treason. These people were hurting this country every way they could. The forest fires burning down L.A. We got the DOJ that's just destroyed. It's destroyed. Nobody has trust in that justice system. We don't have trust in our election system.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Joe. And you talk about treason constitutionally, aiding and abetting and or giving comfort to your enemy. If these people were not acting in collusion with our sworn enemies, it simply doesn't exist. So I think you're exactly right. These people committed treasonable offenses. No question about that.
And who are they working for? Quite frankly, who are they working for? If we did some investigations into some of these guys like Peter Strzok and others, what are their connections to? He was counter intel. Who was he really working for? We find out the one guy who hits Trump with the Russia collusion and maybe is involved in starting that was actually getting paid by Russia. So who are these people working for, really? We need to get to the bottom of that. We need to put them in jail in the meantime.
Yeah.
Oh, Jake Lang comes out Tuesday night. They wouldn't let him out for 24 hours, which is outrageous. His dad gave a testimony that night before he was released, telling his story. Jail in D.C., they would shove these guys in the basement. Jake had to use a sock to filter the water because it had so much rust in it. They couldn't even drink it. It was terrible. They had to lay on the floor. There was no mattress. It was filthy. There was cockroaches, mice, rats. These guys were treated worse than prisoners of war overseas. And, no problem. And actually listened to somebody, I think it was the father or somebody said, well, the reason they didn't get out is because the mayor of D.C., that was a D.C. jail. It wasn't ran by anybody else. She was punishing these people. She's the same nasty woman, and she's, by the way, married to Donna Brazile, the former DNC head. And this lady was involved in the January 6th instance. She should have called in the guard. She called off any military that day. So this is who's punishing these January 6ers. Again, those are terrible crimes that they need to be held, accountable for. We cannot. I think my biggest concern and the biggest issue, other than our elections, is we cannot let these people get away with this. We cannot give them a slap on the hand. We cannot just fire them. We need to hold them accountable for their criminal actions, and very likely treasonous. And some of these people, I do believe, were working with people overseas. They weren't working for the U.S. You could not love this country and do the stuff they were doing. There's no way.
Exactly.
%. And Joe, I was thinking about this the other day. If you look at the 2020 elections and where we were as a people before COVID, before the 2020 elections, most of the country was fast asleep. Most of the country thought that Fox News was going to tell us the truth. And since these 4 years of truly trauma, pain, suffering has squeezed us in such a way that people are awake and we are not going to take it anymore.
No.
Trump would never have the backing of people who will not back down. When I say people like you, people like us, people like Mike Davis, who I love to follow on Twitter, who is threatening lawsuits every single day. I just love it. I love seeing it. But I guess we had to go through the fiery furnace to come out and be in a position to back him and say, hell no, these people are not going to get away with all of these crimes. I think back to Joseph McCarthy's book. I have it right here on my desk. And he was talking in the piece about the communists being infiltrated into the State Department. And look what it's gotten us. It's absolutely
he was right.
insane.
And Coulter wrote a book about that. Yeah, he was right.
Yeah. And he was vilified.
Yeah.
For
and continues to be. That's in our
they
textbooks.
still say McCarthyism.
Yeah.
Go to hell. The guy was right.
Exactly.
save this country.
Yeah, exactly. Joe, back to the 2020 elections quickly. We had a guest on earlier this week who said that 2020 is not going silently into the night. 2020 is not going to go unanswered. Do you have any sense from Trump's team about who, when, what, where this is going to get addressed and what that might look like?
I don't know. I really don't. Not exactly with the Trump team. I hope they do everything they can to address it. I was blessed. Trump sent me a real nice note after I wrote my first book and just really liked it, and wrote 3 books on the Steel. Feel like I know quite a bit about all this, backed by my experience in audit and finance over the years. So it was in finance. What I really mean is controls and processes, because in our financials, our efforts and have to lead to perfection. Our numbers have to be absolutely perfect. That was my mandate when I oversaw a multi-billion-dollar block business. The numbers have to be perfect, and it was tough when you had business all over in multiple currencies, languages, countries, locations, business entities, various types of financial filing, U.S. stat, U.S. GAAP, foreign stats, foreign GAAP, IFRS. This was a killer of a job, and it had to be perfect. And that's the kind of standards we got to have our elections held to. That's what I've been thinking. I'm actually thinking about coming out with a presentation to just say, hey, here's the deal. Here's what we do in corporate. Here's where the financials have to be. We spend millions of dollars to ensure that they're perfect. Every company does. And then you bring in external auditors, and then they have to sign off on it. And I believe there's a lot of integrity in this process. The left hasn't destroyed this yet. Thank God. I don't even want to say anything about it, because they will, because they're sinister. Yeah. And we lose this integrity in our corporations, then we lose our economy totally. And so this, I'm surprised it's not their number one target. They're not the smartest people on earth. They're just vile, And so we've got to do our elections the same way. We have to mandate that there's no room for somebody to sneak something in or sneak something out. Your systems have to be secure. They have to be perfect if you're going to use them. And your processes, most importantly, have to be perfect. There's no way that anybody can do anything with the ballots that would cause any issues. So, and then you have to have evidence and full transparency. The external auditor or the internal auditors are not going to sign off on anything that you're just going to say, yeah, it's fine, just look at this. I've been going back and forth with this Orange County, California. They had an election there this year, this 2024. This guy who runs it says everything's perfect. He even went to a grand jury to have them say that everything's perfect, then he deserves an award for how good it was. And Chris, you could tell us how valid that type of thing is.
Absolutely. It is the easiest thing in the world to get a grand jury to say or to conclude whatever a prosecutor wants them to say or conclude. The other side is not allowed to be presented. It's a one-sided show, and grand jury conclusions, indictments, whatever, typically mean nothing. And so I agree with you on that, Joe. It doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't. So he did that, and we've been going back and forth with him. Here's the thing. Big picture is, well, initially we find out on the Friday after the election of 2024, they had a bomb threat. And nobody seemed to really give a damn. It was quiet, and nobody talks about it today. There were 7 bomb threats in California. There was multiple bomb threats across the country, like 50 some. Nobody's talking about it. You kidding me? Are you kidding me? 50 bomb threats, and we're not going to talk about it?
And they're not, of course, they're not talking anymore about the attempted assassination on President Trump's life anymore. In Butler, it's like, what happened to that?
Yeah, we know. It's still not. Yeah, Abel Child, this girl, Sheila Matthews from Abel Child, she's been doing a great job. She said, there's certain documents we need to see. We haven't seen them yet. So did they do fingerprints? How did they determine who this kid was that was the shooter? How did they identify him? We don't even know that yet. We don't know if his fingerprints was on the bullets or anything like that. We don't know what I don't believe a couple key documents have been released yet. Maybe I don't know if his death certificate was released. I don't know if the forensic report was ever released. There's certain things that we don't have a clue on this thing.
And we don't even know if it's really him, right? Because they incinerated his body before any external investigators could take a look.
Is that unbelievable? It's unbelievable. But when they do stuff like that,
it's mafia tactics.
was as an auditor, if you had somebody who's destroying evidence, you're like, okay, that's fine. It's not fine, but that's the way it is. And we're just going to report our results appropriately. We're not going to say that absolutely this guy was the shooter. We haven't even been able to look at the body. They destroyed it. Same thing with evidence, with the financials. Well, they said these numbers, they had 1,000 invoices. They can't provide them. Okay, fine. We're not going to include those in our final report. They're going to be pushed over here. It'll be qualified. We're going to say we can ascertain this. Yes, for example, the shooter did shoot. He was in Butler. We know that. We know there was a guy on the roof. We believe that's where the bullets came from. We know Trump hit the ground. We knew there were some snipers around. We knew that the Secret Service absolutely failed, and quite frankly, were they in on it?
That's
I got to
the
tell you
point,
guys something,
Joe. And that's the point, Joe. Were they in on it, which takes it to a whole different level. Everybody knows that our federal government is frequently incompetent. But if they were acting in collusion, then it's a whole different scenario. And we absolutely have a right to know that.
Did you remember that big jackass? He's a big guy with a butchy haircut. Looks like he's a military guy or something that's running the Secret Service. I hope he's been replaced already. That got in front of the Congress here recently, started yelling back at some of the House members like he was
the number two guy. Yeah,
nasty guy, nasty. What a nasty guy! And he's replaced a nasty woman who was even worse, right? And it's very clear that to me, in my opinion, they were in on it. They haven't done. When somebody, and this is just auditing 101, when somebody's not giving you some stuff, if they're not being upfront with you, there's something going on. Either they're totally, again, we get to the same dilemma. Are they totally stupid or are they in on it? And it's always, to me, more and more, they're in on it. Don't think these people are dumb. Somebody at that level isn't dumb to get there. These people are in on it and they're not telling us the truth.
Yeah.
And you want to hear something. On the walk to our ball in Washington, D.C. on Monday night. Monday, we stuck around, didn't do much. We were supposed to go to the inauguration, had great seats, and then he moved it inside, and then he moved it over at Capital One. And we had sat outside all day Sunday in the morning between like 9 and 2 to get into his rally, Trump's rally. It was freezing. It was drizzling.
So
he wore a Trump hat, and it was just wet. We bought some ponchos they were selling for just like plastic wrap that they were selling for, I don't know, $10 a piece. Some people making some money. It kept us dry for a while, My poor son was with us. He's about crying. He's so cold and, stuck there.
Yeah.
And they finally got us through the metal detectors, which were outside. And then they had us go walk up to the building. We had to stand outside the building for 2 hours. So
oh my gosh,
it was about 5-6 hours sitting in that cold. It was so cold. And we finally got in, and we had the tag to get into the best seats. And we got in. We were some of the first in. We eventually ended up. We had 3 seats as third row. Trump's final rally as president.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That is awesome. It was worth it.
My God. And Kid Rock comes out and blasts everybody away. My son, I said, "How are your ears?" He goes, "It's not my ears, it's my chest." My chest was going boom, boom. So it was amazing. He was great. And then it just kind of kept going. Great speak. His family came out. The only thing I disagree with, and I have to say it, Laura Trump said, well, we won the election and we saved the day and we got all the any issues, and everybody trusts our elections, and we've now got free and fair elections.
But you know what she did say, Joe, that I noticed, and she's been saying this, we let everybody know that if you commit fraud, we will come after you.
Yeah.
And she just lets that hang there. And I'm praying that they're coming back to that. I'm praying that that's one of those Trump, let this information hang out there so people know, and we are coming for you. I pray that's true.
It was, so that was the one thing that kind of, grabbed me, stuck out. But the rest of the program was incredible. Voight, is that his name?
John Voight.
The actor, John Voight, spoke. He's getting to be an old man, but he was beautiful. He loves Trump. He loves this country. He knew Trump.
He really does.
Like so many of us, it was a God thing. When Trump got up from Butler with his, said, fight, fight, fight. That's what got Elon on board.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Elon's. I'm not happy that like Bannon's going after him. I don't think that's necessary. I think there's a lot of animosity towards him because he just stepped in and he's like Trump's best buddy, like nobody's ever seen before, and they're upset about that. There's a lot of effort to protect Trump from the outside world. It's not, and I believe not in a good sense either. There are these gatekeepers that prevent him from having access to the people. He's good though getting over those guys, because I know he's like, for example, has read Gateway Pundit. He knows who we are and the stuff we've done. So that's great. He does that on his own, but he's got a lot of gatekeepers, and I think they're frustrated that Elon came in, and I'm thrilled. This guy's brilliant, and I want him on my team any day. And same with the rest of the team so far. There's a couple bad picks, but one got relieved 2 days later. This guy, sheriff from Florida, he was DEA or something. He's gone, and that was something too. He got removed, and the news was that he resigned. And Trump came back the next day, and said, "No, he didn't resign. I got rid of him." Yeah. And so he was given wrong, support or evidence or whatever information on this guy, but he got it fixed. So I love him for that. It's a tough job. We expect these guys to be perfect, and they're not. I remember talking to Michelle Bachmann, former representative. She says, "Joe, we're the last people to find stuff. You think we'd be the first? We're the last." And we think these guys got better information than us. In a lot of cases, they just don't. Yeah. And I could tell you a senior level person reached out to my brother Jim to ask him about January 6th to get some more information on it, because he just wasn't seeing what people were seeing. And it was really neat that he reached out, to the Gateway Pundit to get that information. Jim's done, and the Gateway Pundit, just incredible work over the years to just share this message of what's happened to these poor people. It's been some of the darkest stuff in U.S. history. I don't think we've ever treated prisoners like we have these.
I don't think so. And you mentioned Jake Lang earlier, Joe, and I read this morning. Do you know? I was telling Danielle. Do you know that he spent almost, I think, 900 total days in solitary confinement? I don't know if you're familiar with exactly what solitary confinement is, but that is when you're housed in a very, very small cell. You're able to come out for, I think, 30 minutes, maybe a day, and then you're back in there almost 24/7 in a small cell by yourself with absolutely no contact with anybody else ever. Those are the kind of things that have profound psychological implications on people when that happens to them. And I think that is an absolute tragedy that he was subjected to that. And I guarantee he wasn't the only one. And so, just getting back to your point of accountability. Yeah. There's got to be accountability. Absolutely. In order to keep this kind of thing from ever happening again in this country. That DC jail needs to be shut down, and the mayor and everybody else arrested. I mean, no, you can't do this to Americans. This is not right. And how many of these people just walked in the Capitol and walked out? And I've heard some good people say, well, they trespassed. No, they didn't. Not at all. No, you can't have me walk across somebody's yard or something, then they arrest me for trespassing when there's no signage or anything like that. I'm sorry. There was nobody telling them you were trespassing. It was all a setup, and and then most of these people walked in on one side of the building where it was totally peaceful. They were singing Kumbaya and stuff on that side. The other side is where the violence was, and yet they arrest all these people that walked in there that were invited in by the cops. No, that's not trespassing. No, that's not. It's not trespassing. And we also have to look at and see. We had Congressman Clay Higgins on our show a number of months ago, and he said that there were quite a few federal plants in the audience, in the J6 audience, inciting people to riotous conduct and behavior and other things. We have a right to know that. We have a right to know the extent to which the federal government was involved in colluding to incite J6. Yeah. We have a right to know these things. Of course we do. Of course we do. Our government went against us, and they destroyed half the evidence. And then Joe pardons them all. I got to say, we've got to challenge Biden's pardons. This guy's senile. He's not signing anything. He hasn't known what to do for 4 years. Yeah. Why is that not going to be an issue? This guy was never competent to do anything. I think who was running this country, and what sort of criminals were? Because they were destroying this country. My son's got a wonderful place he's been going for about 4 years, a taekwondo place in Florida.
wonderful people. They're just great with kids. We just love the place. He's learning a lot. And they just announced over the weekend that they're going to shut down in a month. They can't keep the business going in the Biden economy. That's killed them. And they talk about a 20% inflation increase. BS.
It is BS.
That's a lie. You go out to eat, everybody, I just talked to guys finally people are talking about it. They're going to say, yeah, you go to fast food, you're paying 2-3 times what you used to 4 years ago. You go to a regular restaurant, you're paying at least double. It's expensive. Most people, they don't want people to know that it's tough for them. And so they don't say anything because they don't want to be known as poor or whatever. And it's hurting a lot of people. Credit card debt's at the all-time high.
Yeah.
Foreclosures, et cetera. I talked to somebody in Florida here. Real estate says they had this key person in this key county had one closing last month. So you can't tell me that this economy is going great. Biden has destroyed this economy, and we've got a lot of work to do. And the only way you listen to these guys talk about inflation. It's all caused by government spending, and the government, when they spend, they can either tax, they can cut spending, or they can just print money. And when they print money, which they've been doing, then you got massive inflation. And so they think they're being nice to everybody. No, they've made it hell for everybody. The average American is getting crushed. And so this is where we're at. Trump has got a mess. And that's partially why I'm angry too. And this couple that ran this place 30 years in their family, and I loved them. And they were great with my son. I felt safe there. My son was safe. And they got to shut down because they can't afford this thing anymore. The people aren't coming as much because they don't have the extra spending money to do something like this. Instead, they'd like to spend money on food to eat. And, it's crazy. It doesn't. My daughter sent me a picture the other day. Dozen or 13, eggs in St. Louis was, $12. It's like, this is crazy. Nobody's
$1 an egg.
And they made up stuff to just kill all the chickens. It's all been planned, and Trump will get it addressed. I'm really happy about that. I think, but that's why it's so important for having Elon there, somebody that tore Twitter apart. You got rid of all the bogus employees. We need to do the same thing with our government. And I know there's government workers that are concerned, but I'm sorry, it's time to grow up, and we've got to get this thing fixed, or we're all done.
You're right.
Absolutely.
You're right. And Joe, let's talk a little bit about the winning. So Trump shuttered the DEI offices across the government yesterday. I guess they're on leave without pay, but how magnificent is that? And he overturned, I don't know if you saw this, but he overturned Harry Truman's initial executive order that established affirmative action as the way forward for the country. So he is peeling back. We're talking about decades and decades of this race baiting and shift from meritocracy and moving it back to that. And I couldn't be happier about that.
Yeah. I saw a poll today. Some guys reading the poll. Blacks, Hispanics, they're all on board. They don't like it either. And this guy pointed out that in the blue collar jobs that have been created, not many, but it's like 5% have gone to whites. Well, that's not affirmative action. That's racism.
Absolutely.
And that's what they created here. And we all pretended like, oh, it's needed and we should be punished. We should feel bad because our skin is white. They can go to hell. These people they are satanic. They are gross. How about this lady talking? I'm sorry, you're trying to lift things up. The greatest thing.
It's on my list. I wanted to talk about that lady, so go for it.
Well, I'll mention that, but let me tell you, we saw a rally with Trump from 13 feet away or whatever, and that was awesome. I was so thrilled, and my son got to see it, and that was awesome. And at the end, when he brought those village people out there to dance with him on stage, it was just one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
Classic.
And Trump's in the background doing that. It's like, oh my God, this is great. So that was wonderful. We need to celebrate, but we need to fight like crazy right now too. We get these monsters need to be crushed. And I hope Pam Bondi has I heard she Pete
Hexa.
He just got passed. The Senate just affirmed him, I heard.
Praise God for that.
Awesome. I was going to ask you about Hexa.
Yeah, he's in. That's good. I think he'll do a good job. He's a fighter. I don't,
Yes.
he's got a big job. It's a big, big, big group. He's got to get the right people in there. As long as he's got some good people though to help him. Like I mentioned, we were talking to Flynn the other day, General Flynn. He was saying, I think this is okay for me to say this as well. That he's happy working from outside the government. He thinks he can do more help that way. And I think he's given some advice to some of these people because he knows what villains and vile people there are in that government.
Yeah.
You've got to get rid of that stuff quickly as soon as you can. And Hegseth's got a lot of work to do in that military. I think a lot of these generals have to be removed.
What do you think about, Joe? We have a call to action out down here for our two U.S. senators who, to our knowledge, have not yet announced support for either Kash Patel for FBI director or RFK Jr. for HHS. What are your thoughts on their confirmation? And do you expect a lot of resistance from the Democrats on them?
I do. Absolutely. Especially RFK. There is so much money that Big Pharma's been shoving into our government. They're going to have, it's all about the money. But these guys, American people are going to be pissed. I tell you what, at that rally, Trump was the biggest cheer. Elon and RFK were, next. A lot of people love RFK Jr. And he wants to fix, this is a big thing that we didn't know 4 years ago.
It's a big deal. Big deal.
Big Pharma wasn't even a name. And it's real. It's really real. And we've got to address that big time. He's got a big job and I love having him in there. He'll do a great job. So yeah, he has to be in.
We are so honored to be affiliate partners for General Michael Flynn's movie, Flynn, Deliver the Truth, Whatever the Cost. Support General Flynn and the State of Freedom by shopping the Flynn Movie Store directly from the button on our homepage at freedomstate.us or through our affiliate link, flynnmovie.com/TSOF podcast. On that site, you can purchase the DVD, which comes with a streaming link. You can pick up Flynn Movie merchandise and get his complete 5GW book series.
And your senators, that one senator, is it Cassidy? That guy's a piece of work. Georgia, in Louisiana.
Down here in Louisiana, and we have a couple of announced candidates against him. He is probably the least, no question, the least popular political figure in this state's history right now.
Yeah.
And for very legitimate reasons, and for him to come out now and act as though he's a Trump supporter and that he's on board with the agenda. This is a guy who voted to convict Trump in the U.S. Senate and kick him out of office. If he had his way, we wouldn't have a President Trump right now. So Cassidy can't be gone soon enough.
Did he vote both times against Trump in those impeachments? Or
I
just
believe
the second
so.
one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
What a snake.
What
a snake.
absolutely.
I mean, the second one, what the hell? That was after he wasn't even in office and they're impeaching him. That thing wasn't legal either. The stuff these people do, like Biden pardoning him. I want to ask you this, Chris. I saw Jason Whitlock, who's a sports announcer, formerly with ESPN, and he's pretty opinionated. I like most of the things he shared. He says, well, how do we do this? You pardon ahead. So basically he says, so you could hire somebody, give them a pardon, and then have them go kill somebody. And that's fine because they've already been pardoned for it.
Well, there are, the Constitution allows what's called preemptive pardons, Joe. But my understanding is that the conduct for which they're being pardoned has already occurred, whether or not they have been prosecuted criminally or convicted. I don't think that you can, so a preemptive pardon, the conduct itself has to have already occurred. So the idea of pardoning someone and then they go out and do something after they've been pardoned, I don't know that would fly constitutionally, because a preemptive pardon means they haven't been prosecuted criminally, but the conduct itself has already occurred.
Chris, is it just that the conduct has occurred, or is it that they've been charged? Because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you can pardon someone for something that no one knows that they did except for them and whoever may have been hurt by the thing,
I believe the Constitution allows that. Obviously, that process has been historically abused by Joe Biden, no question about that. By the way, I wanted to ask you about this, Joe. You may not know the answer, but we didn't have time to ask our guest yesterday about it. But, Mark Milley, the general who's been pardoned, that treasonous scum has been pardoned by Joe Biden. Do you know whether or not that precludes a military court-martial? Could he still, because some people are saying that he could still be court-martialed in a military tribunal, even though he's been pardoned by Biden. And I don't know whether
That'd
or not.
be great. That guy's a monster. He was colluding with China.
Yeah.
Again, we gotta start getting into our, into the mainstream, into our thought process. These people are doing things that are so anti-American. Are they working for America, or are they working for somebody else? And Milley calling China like he did during 2020 after the election and saying he's got their back, basically. And now Mike Benz has been saying for some time that the more we dig into January 6th, we're going to see Mark Milley was behind it all.
Wow.
And so,
wow. Now, I did not know that. I knew about the China.
That. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and maybe both are China related. You know what I mean? Maybe this whole thing was China related. We don't know. There are a lot of people in our government that are not working for the U.S. at very high levels. I mean, really, kind of some of these politicians too. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Well, even Cassidy or whatever. I mean, who's he working for?
Right.
He's not working for America. How about Murkowski? How about McConnell?
Yeah.
His wife's connected to this Chinese. I think he's made a lot of money for that family.
So, yeah, he has.
Yeah, he has.
Who are
and
they?
McConnell, of course, yesterday says that Trump's pardon of the J6 defendants is one of the grossest abuses of the judicial process in history. McConnell is saying this.
But Biden was fine.
But Biden was fine.
Milley and January 6th, those people are fine. What a pig
those
he
pardons
was.
are fine. Yeah.
What a disgusting person. He and his wife. And Trump really, he tried, in my opinion, to bring the party together by bringing her in and tried to, use that as an effort to put us all together on the same page. And those guys just spit in his face. They took those positions and did what they wanted and backstabbed him the whole way. So,
and Joe, I was an intern at the Department of Labor when she was Secretary of Labor under Bush Jr., and she had the reputation for being the meanest, most volatile person ever. She threw staplers at her staff. Like, we're talking someone who's just unhinged. This is not a serious person. This is someone who sounds just like a total brat.
Yeah, to say the least.
Everybody said that McConnell was the nice one back then.
Well, that says something right there for sure. Yeah.
But speaking of nasty people, especially nasty women, Joe, the woman yesterday, this Bishop Bud, that gave that disgusting, it was supposed to be a prayer service. It was not a prayer service. It was basically grandstanding and putting the full leftist woke agenda on full display in a way to try and shame President Trump for taking care of the American people. I heard one commentator yesterday, and I think he said it best. He said, when you look at the video footage of the first family's reaction to what she was saying, it looked like someone released a foul smell into the National Cathedral. And that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like, they're so aghast. But you had a piece come out this morning by someone who I love, Archbishop Carlo Vigano. I truly do consider him to be the Pope in exile. What would you tell us a little bit about what the Archbishop had to say? Because he was straight fire.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He's been so strong. He stood up against this current Pope. Who there's a book out there. What was the guy's name before him? They called him
Ratzinger.
Ratzinger. The Ratzinger Code is the name of the book, and they're saying he was taken over. It was the first time in 1,000 years that a Pope had been relieved of his duty, and he was still alive. For 1,000 years, the Pope had died, and then they replaced him. Instead, this group came in, made Pope Francis the Pope, and
Pope Benedict was essentially deposed.
Yeah, and he was there, but there were signs they were saying that he was saying, and even his stepping away speech, he made some comments that people said they were very specific, hidden kind of, to let people know that this was a coup.
Yeah.
Imagine that. A coup of the Catholic Church, a coup of the government of the United States.
Yeah.
A coup of Europe. all of this was coming, and this is how close we were. So Vagano's been very outspoken against COVID, against the Pope, the Kurt Francis, and the child molestation, the child pornography, and all that's been found in the church. He's also gonna, he stands up against Catholic Charities that's made so much money. That's the thing that these people have done. They've destroyed the churches, not just the Catholic Church, but so many other churches by giving them money to do things that are criminal. And they got hit so hard with COVID that I think some of these churches were anxious to take some money on and could rationalize what they're doing as, we're just helping poor innocent people. Like that bishop woman, lesbian woman, who's the bishop in D.C. who scolded President Trump. So Vagano was pretty clear about that. She's just part of this new world order that are just vile. They're disgusting. She's standing up for the destruction of children through trans surgeries, etc.
And this child trafficking. I noticed she didn't say anything about the 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 migrant children who the Biden administration has lost in the country, has no idea where they are. I guarantee you that they are being victimized by child traffickers right now as we speak. She says nothing about that.
No, she didn't care about that. It was all political slam, and he called her out on it. It was brilliant, wasn't it? He's done that over and over again. He's been the one sound voice coming out of the Catholic Church over the last few years, and it's been, really refreshing. I received a letter from that guy. He used to send me his stuff, directly to my email. I put it up at Gateway Pundit and stuff, and I got a nice letter from him one day, which was really cool. I also met the guy who translates for him. This guy was in law school, a former priest that quit the priesthood because he couldn't stand what he was seeing happening in the church, and went to law, and he was translating Vagano's messages for Vagano for free. And he's now an attorney, a great guy. And so,
is Vagano, Joe, is Vagano in exile right now, to your knowledge?
Well, he's they excommunicated him. This Pope Francis excommunicated
he's been
him from the church.
Yeah,
and it's horrible. But look who Francis is. He's a vile person. He's a communist. He's been planted there. And I've heard these guys talk about, and even Vagano talk about, inside the Vatican, inside the church, there's a real dark group that's in the Vatican.
That's my understanding as well.
They're
that
it's on the side of God, Jesus, or the church at all. They're the opposite.
Yeah, controlling it. And of course, Trump's, Francis castigates Trump for his deportation orders, trying to remove all these illegal immigrants from the country, many of whom are criminals. Yet Danielle and I were talking about this morning, yet he has a 30-foot tall wall that surrounds the Vatican, and penalties for breaching the Vatican wall and entering the Vatican without permission is up to 3, 4, 5 years in prison. So Pope Francis, there seems to be a bit of hypocrisy in play here.
Right. That's
Bring me,
exactly.
You're tired, you're weary, you're lonely.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah. But that was the thing too, that's so confusing when you have this woman who's this bishop. She talks in such a nice voice, real pleasant, real nice, like just the nicest little lady you ever talked to, a first grade teacher kind of voice, just gentle. And she's spewing out, pure evil, in my opinion, in the church. And I think he points that out, and he points out, you don't have the right to even be a bishop. And he was pretty, sharp on her. She's a nut job, and she shouldn't be in that role. And I hope that church suffers as a result, that people wake up and say, I'm not going to be part of that anymore. It's been
I think that there are a lot of people, Joe, now who are standing up, and who are, I think more and more people, not just in the United States, as you mentioned earlier, but across the world, are waking up and understanding that it's time to chart a new course. And we must do so now.
Wow.
But anyway, Joe, it always feels like our time together flies by when we're on. I want to mention, before you go, later today at 1 p.m. Central, State of Freedom will be live streaming Steve Stern's Integrity in Action call on Rumble and on X. And we will be back on Tuesday morning here at the State of Freedom with some incredible guests associated with January 6th. Joe, any final words before you go?
No, I'll be on that call with Steve today.
I thought you would be.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I've got a show at noon your time. Tina Peters is going to dial in, and then I'm going to have
You have an
January
update
6th
from her?
Yeah, she's going to call. So see, I got some texts here, but that's what's going on today. And then we got
Awesome.
a guy from California who is just had a rough time. Some people have really helped him, but he's gone through hell over these last 4 years. He's a January 6th. That case now has been, it's gone. He's been pardoned of that. But at the same time, they charged him in a case in California at about the same time. I think it was a week before January 6th. He was on a street corner, with a group of people complaining about the election. Cars are driving by honking. They all agree. Everybody agrees. And a couple gangbangers came up. One guy had brass knuckles. He attacks Kim, and Kim defends himself with his blowhorn. And so they charge Kim for the crime. And the witness is this gangbanger who now they can't find, but they're moving forward with his case still. This case in California is moving
Unbelievable.
forward. He defended himself with a bullhorn. We got the video. We're going to share that today too. It's outrageous.
And he's getting charged.
He gets charged. The gangbanger comes after him. The thing that hits me is this happened in St. Louis when they tried to change out. I'll end with this. They tried to change the name of St. Louis. Some gangbangers went to this prayer vigil that Jim set up, my brother Jim with Gateway Pundit, at the St. Louis statue. Some gangbangers showed up afterwards, cracked some people in the back of the heads, knocked a couple guys out with brass knuckles. Nothing happened to them. So I think there must be some sort of thing that the Democrats or whoever it is are paying gangbangers to hurt people.
To incite, to foment unrest.
Yeah.
No question about that. Well, they thrive on division, Joe.
Yeah.
And we're
It's
moving
fascist
toward
stuff. It's like
It
George
is.
Soros, the Nazi, is telling these guys, here's what you do. You bring in some gangbangers, pay them a few bucks, they'll do anything. Have them go in and jack them, throw them around. It's
And that's
freaking
the playbook.
fascist stuff.
That's absolutely the playbook, because I saw the AG from, I can't remember where. Okay, I would lie if I said I could remember where. Maybe it is Missouri, but it may not be. Come out and say, well, we need to charge these people at the state level, the J6ers. So if Trump's pardoning them, we need to do something that Trump can't touch.
Yeah.
And that sounds like it's exactly what's happening to your friend.
That was a DA from Pennsylvania who's backed by George Soros.
Disgusting. It's disgusting. And all the more reason for us to care so much about election integrity, because who we get in office matters. And we have to basically keep our head on a swivel and not allow this to take place.
Absolutely.
No. And as the great William F. Buckley Jr. said, inveighing we shall go. Inveighing we shall go. God bless you, Joe Hoft. Always a pleasure. We look forward to talking again soon, sir.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, God bless.
God bless you, Joe.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.